journalist, mostly as a sports reporter in the Owen Sound Sun-Times newspaper, for the Owen Sound Sun-Times newspaper. He has a BA in history from the University of Waterloo and has almost completed his MA. He only needs to finish and defend his thesis, which is a biography of Toronto Maple Leafs legend Clarence Happ Day. He's planning for his thesis to become his second book, hopefully next year. His first book, which he's here to talk about today, is The Making of Slapshot, behind the scenes of the greatest hockey movie ever made.
So I'm sure many of you recognize the jersey I'm wearing, Charlestown Chiefs. And the back cover of the book says they're one of the best known and most popular fictional sports teams in history. I should have qualified that by calling them quasi-fictional, because they're not exactly the best team that never existed, because meet the Johnstown Jets. The Jets played in the North American Hockey League, which Benoit mentioned earlier, was the AHL. As the AHL was to the NHL, the NAHL was to the WHA in the mid-70s. So these are the Johnstown Jets, and in 1974-75, they won the Lockhart Cup as North American Hockey League champions. Sorry. And that last picture was in black and white, but just to emphasize the color similarities of the jerseys. Here's Paul Newman during the filming of Slapshot, being presented with a Jets jersey by the team president and the league president. Incidentally, he was also given a lifetime pass to North American Hockey League games, which proved to be not much of a prize, given that the league folded one year later. I'm sure he kept the Jets jersey though for the rest of his life as a memento. So 4 of the Jets players earned quite a bit of notoriety for their, shall we say, aggressive play. The 3 on the left, from left to right, Jeff, Steve, and Jack Carlson, brothers from Virginia, Minnesota. They all came to the Jets together in 1974 and playing together as a forward line. They all wore glasses on the ice, so they were quite unusual looking for the time, not just for wearing glasses, but the fact that they just looked so much alike. Which of course was great when you're casting hockey players who all look alike. And on the right, standing up there, is Dave Hansen. He's shown knocking Bill Goldthorpe, a noteworthy goon, to the ice. So when the screenplay was written, the writer, Nancy Dowd, transposed the surnames so that Jeff, Steve, and Jack Carlson became Jeff, Steve, and Jack Hansen, and Dave Hansen became Dave Carlson. So on the left is Ned Dowd. He was a teammate of the Carlsons and Dave Hansen on the Johnstown Jets in 74-75. And on the right is his sister, Nancy Dowd. And what happened was, Nancy was a screenwriter. I don't think she'd really done anything of note before this, but she was quite fascinated by hearing stories from her brother Ned about the goings-on in Johnstown and in the North American Hockey League. So she visited him in Johnstown, and she was even more fascinated, and so she ended up hanging out with the team for several weeks. When she left a tape recorder for Ned to capture conversations in the dressing room, on the bus, just wherever the team was. He sent her the tapes, and she used those tapes as the basis for a screenplay that she was writing about Brothers team. So when the producers signed on to make the movie, they were looking for a director, obviously, and they found George Roy Hill. George is shown here with the Oscar that he won for directing The Sting a couple of years earlier. And prior to that, his biggest film had been Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Of course, both of those movies starred Paul Newman, so it was only natural that Paul Newman would play the star player in this movie as Reggie Dunlop. But even though the George Roy Hill connection was there, he wasn't actually the first choice for the movie. There was another actor who had expressed his interest in the movie, Al Pacino. He was the hottest actor of his day. This was in the wake of Serpico, the first two Godfather movies, and Dog Day Afternoon, and he wanted to play Reggie Dunlop in the movie. Unfortunately, when he met George Roy Hill, the director quite reasonably asked, "Can you skate?" And the answer was never made clear because Pacino, I guess, kind of pulled himself out of the running after that. He thought it was I forget the wording he used, but he didn't care for the question. He didn't care for having his abilities challenged, but he never did admit whether he could skate or not. So among other casting decisions, believe it or not, Henry Winkler, at the height of his fame as Arthur Fonzarelli, was considered to play a Hanson brother. There are a lot of, just go back for 1 second, please. There were a lot of casting choices that were really interesting, and in the book I've reproduced sheets of paper from Universal Studios of the number of actors that read or skated for the movie, and there are quite a few famous or soon-to-be famous names on that list, so if you want to check that out, the photos are reproduced in the book. So, in the process of researching this book, I came to quite like shattering myths. And the one biggest myth about Slapshot used to be that it was the story of John Brophy. Because, of course, Brophy was a famous player-coach in that era. And there's a character in the movie called Nick Brophy. So it was just assumed that he was the inspiration for the Reggie Dunlop character. And I'm here to tell you that he was not. This is Dick Roberge. Some of you might be familiar with him. He spent most of his career, he never made the NHL, but he spent his career mostly in Johnstown in the Eastern Hockey League. He's the first and only minor pro player to score 700 goals during his career. And he was a player coach for the Jets. In the picture on the right, he's shown with the Lockhart Cup trophy. He was just the coach and general manager of the team that year. But that's the real inspiration for Reggie Dunlop right there. And if he looks familiar to you, it's because he had a cameo in Slapshot. He's a referee in several scenes, including on the right where he throws the Hanson brothers out of the game and gets into an argument with Paul Newman. So basically, it's the man and the man playing the man. So I thought that was quite interesting. Benoit mentioned in his presentation, or in his tribute to Stefan, the Beauce Jarros. And they were also a team in the North American Hockey League and the rivals of Johnstown. And I wanted to just show them because just as the Charlestown Chiefs replicated the Jets jerseys, they used all the NAHL teams for the fictional Federal Hockey League. So we've got the Beauce Jarros, who became the Syracuse Bulldogs. And I thought this was pretty clever. In the final game, they brought all these old minor hockey goons to play the Syracuse Goons. On the left, we got Blake Ball. He played most if not all of his career in the Eastern League. Top right, we got Joe Nolan. They called him Indian Joe. Oh, sorry. Blake Ball played Gilmore Tuttle, was his character. Joe Nolan played Clarence Screaming Buffalo Swamptown. And on the lower right, Connie Madigan. And a couple of years before that, he had become the oldest rookie in NHL history when he played 20 games for the St. Louis Blues during the, I think, 73-74 season. And he played Ross Mad Dog Madison. And this is Bruce Boudreau. I'm sure over the years you've heard lots of stories about him being in the movie, and he played for the Johnstown Jets at the time, and he was cast in the movie as an extra with the Hyannisport Presidents. And he understood quite well that if he was going to actually get any screen time in the movie, he needed to be in front of the camera as much as possible. So during the first game in the movie, the Chiefs versus the Presidents, you can see him, quite prominently in several scenes, including this one. And before you switch, one other myth that I like to shatter is that In recent years, it's been said that his apartment in Johnstown was the apartment used for Reggie Dunlop in the movie. That's also not true. It was the model for the apartment, but also in the book, I've reproduced a production sheet from the filming proving that Reggie Dunlop's apartment in the movie was actually staged in Universal Studios in California. So when I first published this book, it was in 2010. It was published by John Wiley and Sons, and this was the cover. Unfortunately, it's been out of print for many years, so I took it upon myself finally to regain the rights and reproduce it this year. So that's the old cover. We're going to get rid of that, and this is the new cover. So it's self-published. I'm quite proud of it, and I'd like to share with as many people as I can. So anyone who's interested, I have copies for sale here, and that's my presentation. Thank you.